We're told that finding your soulmate is destiny, that the universe conspires to bring two hearts together at the perfect moment, in the perfect way. That love arrives like a gentle dawn, soft and inevitable. But when you dial the wrong number at 3 in the morning, desperate and terrified, and the voice that answers belongs to the most dangerous man in the territory, a king who could end your life with a single command, you learn the devastating truth. Destiny doesn't care about timing, propriety, or whether you're ready. Destiny is a wolf at your door, and it doesn't knock politely. My name is Dr. Aria Thorne, and I'm a human veterinarian, living in a world where shifters rule and humans survive by staying invisible, useful, and silent. I built my clinic on the edge of the Shadowpine territory for one reason: to be forgotten, to treat the animals no one else cared about, to live quietly beneath the radar of pack politics and territorial wars. I had 3 rules. Never treat shifters, never get involved in pack business, never, ever draw attention from the throne. I broke all 3 rules in a single phone call. The mistake happened because I was exhausted, because the number in my contacts was 1 digit off, because a dying wolf pup was bleeding out on my surgical table and I needed help. I couldn't provide alone. I meant to call Dr. Reeves, the wildlife specialist 2 towns over. Instead, I called Cade Blackthorne, the Alpha King, and by morning, when I stepped outside to find 24 black wolves surrounding my clinic, their eyes gleaming gold in the dawn light, their massive bodies still as statues, waiting, I realized that some mistakes don't just change your life, they devour it whole. Chapter 1. The call. The blood wouldn't stop. I'd packed the wound 3 times already, my hands steady despite the exhaustion blurring my vision. 3 a.m. and I was alone in my clinic with a wolf pup that shouldn't have survived the journey to my door, let alone the mauling that had torn through its shoulder like paper. Someone had left it in a box outside. No note. No explanation. Just a dying animal and the assumption that the human vet would know what to do. I always knew what to do. That was the problem. Stay with me, I whispered, checking the pup's gums. Too pale. Shock was setting in, and I didn't have the blood supply for a transfusion, didn't have the equipment for the kind of surgery this required. My clinic treated house pets and the occasional farm animal, not wildlife, and certainly not wolves. But I couldn't let it die. My phone sat on the counter, smeared with blood from my gloves. I'd been staring at it for 5 minutes, knowing I needed help, knowing I had no one to call. Dr. Reeves was the only specialist within 100 miles who might talk me through this, who might know how to stop the bleeding when everything I'd learned said the pup should already be dead. I stripped off my gloves, grabbed the phone, and scrolled through my contacts with shaking fingers. Reeves, David, wildlife specialist. I hit call. It rang once, twice. A voice answered on the 3rd ring, deep and rough with sleep. Who is this? Not Dr. Reeves. My brain stuttered, trying to place the voice, but panic overrode caution. I need help. I have a wolf pup, maybe 6 weeks old, massive trauma to the left shoulder. I've controlled the external bleeding, but there's internal damage I can't assess without imaging, and I don't have. Stop. The word cut through my rambling like a blade. Who is this, and how did you get this number? Something in his tone made my stomach drop. This wasn't irritation at being woken. This was authority. Command. The kind of voice that made your hindbrain scream predator. I'm Dr. Aria Thorne, I said, forcing my voice steady. I run a veterinary clinic on the border of Shadowpine territory. I was trying to reach Dr. Reeves, I must have. You called the wrong number, Dr. Thorne. Yes, I'm sorry, I'll describe the pup's injuries again. Slowly. I blinked at the phone, confused, but the pup whimpered on the table and I didn't have time to question why a stranger wanted details. I ran through everything, the location and depth of the wounds, the pupil response, the breathing rate, the temperature. Silence, on the other end. Then, you're human. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes. And you're treating a shifter pup. The world tilted. I looked down at the small body on my table, seeing it differently now. The size was wrong for a normal wolf, too large for 6 weeks. The bone structure too dense, And those eyes, barely open, flickering with an almost gold sheen. Oh God, I didn't know, I whispered. Someone left it outside my clinic, I thought. What's your address? What? Your address, Dr. Thorne. Now. Every instinct screamed at me to hang up, to run, to pretend this never happened. Humans didn't treat shifters. That was the first rule of survival in their world. We stayed in our lane, we kept our heads down, and we never, ever got involved in pack business. But the pup was dying. 1247 Pinewood Road. I heard myself say, "The clinic is called Haven's Rest. Keep pressure on the wound, don't let it shift. Someone will be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. I stood frozen, phone in hand, my heart hammering against my ribs. 20 minutes. Someone was coming. I didn't know who I'd called, didn't know what I'd just set in motion. But there was no taking it back now. The pup whimpered again, pulling me back to the moment. Okay. I breathed, moving back to the table. Okay. We just have to keep you alive for 20 minutes. I worked mechanically, checking vitals, adjusting the IV fluids I'd started, monitoring the makeshift pressure bandage. My hands didn't shake. They never did when I was working. It was only after, when the crisis passed, that I fell apart. 15 minutes. The pup's breathing grew shallower. 10 minutes. I heard vehicles outside, multiple engines, heavy tires on gravel. 5 minutes. The front door of my clinic exploded inward. I didn't scream, there wasn't time. 3 men poured through the entrance, moving with inhuman speed and precision. They weren't men, not really. I could see it in the way they moved, the gold flickering at the edges of their eyes, the barely contained violence in every gesture. Shifters. In my clinic, the largest one moved straight to the table, his eyes locking on the pup. Status. Stable for now, I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. But the internal bleeding, we have a surgeon standing by. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something flicker across his face. Surprise, maybe, or assessment. You kept it alive. That's my job. Your job is treating humans' pets. My job, I said quietly, is treating anything that comes through my door and needs help. His expression shifted into something I couldn't read. Then he nodded once, sharp and decisive. Packet for transport, carefully. The other 2 moved in, their hands gentle despite their size, lifting the pup with practiced ease onto a specialized stretcher I definitely couldn't afford. They worked in perfect synchronization, the kind of coordination that came from years of training. Military, I realized. Or Royal Guard. Oh no. Dr. Thorne. The large one, clearly the leader, stood between me and the door. The king wants to see you. My mouth went dry. The king, you called him. At 3 a.m, on his private line. His smile held no warmth. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? Chapter 2. The drive to the palace took 30 minutes, though it felt like hours. They'd left 2 guards at my clinic for security, they said, though we both knew it meant I couldn't run. The leader, who'd introduced himself only as Captain Riker, sat across from me in the black SUV, his eyes never leaving my face. I'd been allowed to wash the blood off my hands. Nothing else. I didn't know it was his private line, I said for the 3rd time. I was trying to reach a colleague, Dr. David Reeves. The numbers must have been 1 digit apart, Riker finished. Yes, we're aware. Then you know it was an accident. The king doesn't believe in accidents, Dr. Thorne. He believes in patterns. Riker leaned forward slightly. You're human. You run a clinic on the border of our territory. You somehow obtain a royal phone number. You call in the middle of the night about an injured shifter pup that mysteriously appears at your door. Tell me, what pattern does that suggest to you? My stomach twisted. You think I'm involved in whatever hurt that pup. I think, Riker said carefully, that you're either very unlucky or very clever. The king will determine which. The SUV turned through massive iron gates, and suddenly we were driving through grounds that looked like they belonged in a fairy tale. Manicured gardens stretched in every direction, illuminated by subtle lighting that made everything glow silver blue in the pre-dawn darkness. The palace itself rose ahead, All dark stone and sharp angles, beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful. We pulled around to a side entrance, not the grand front doors, I noticed. Servants' entrance, maybe. Or prisoners. This way. Riker led me through a maze of corridors, each more opulent than the last. Marble floors. Tapestries that probably cost more than my entire clinic. Guards stationed at every junction, their eyes tracking me with predatory focus. I'd never felt more human in my life. We stopped before an ornate door. Riker knocked twice, waited, then pushed it open. "Dr. Thorne, Your Majesty." The office beyond was smaller than I'd expected, more personal. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 2 walls, filled with leather-bound volumes that actually looked read. A massive desk dominated the center, its surface covered in papers and maps. And behind it, he was younger than I'd imagined, maybe early 30s, with black hair that fell just past his collar, and eyes that held flecks of gold even in human form, handsome in a way that felt dangerous, like staring too long at the sun. King Cade Blackthorne looked up from whatever he'd been reading, and those gold-flecked eyes locked onto mine. The air left my lungs. "Dr. Thorne." His voice was the same one from the phone, deep, commanding, but now with an edge I hadn't heard before. Curiosity, maybe. "Thank you for coming." As if I'd had a choice. "Your Majesty." I managed something resembling a bow. Awkward and unpracticed. Humans didn't often find themselves in the presence of royalty. "Sit." I sat in the chair across from his desk, hyper-aware of Riker standing behind me, blocking the exit. The king set down his papers and steepled his fingers, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "The pup will survive. My surgeon says your intervention saved its life." Relief flooded through me. "I'm glad. Are you?" It wasn't quite a question. Most humans would have let a shifter die, especially one found in suspicious circumstances. "I'm a veterinarian," I said simply. "I don't let animals die if I can help it. Shifter or not." "How progressive of you." His tone held something sharp. "Tell me, Dr. Thorne, how long have you been treating shifters in your clinic?" "I haven't. Tonight was the first. Don't lie to me." The words cracked through the room like a whip. I flinched despite myself. "I'm not lying. I treat domestic animals, and occasional wildlife. Farm cats, dogs, the odd injured bird. I've never treated a shifter because shifters don't come to human vets. We both know that. And yet you knew exactly what to do with an injured pup. Because the anatomy is similar. Canine physiology doesn't change just because." I stopped, realizing I was raising my voice to a king who could have me executed for far less. "I'm sorry, but I'm telling the truth. I didn't know what it was until you told me." Silence stretched between us. The king's eyes never left mine, and I forced myself not to look away. If he thought I was lying, cowering wouldn't help, might even make it worse. Finally, he leaned back in his chair. "You live alone. No family in the territory, no pack affiliation. You opened your clinic 2 years ago with money you don't seem to have earned. And you're barren." The last word hit like a slap. My hands clenched in my lap. "That's not relevant too. Everything is relevant when assessing whether someone is a threat." His voice remained cold. Clinical. "You're a human woman, alone, operating a failing business on the edge of my territory. You have no mate, no prospects of children, no community ties. You're isolated, desperate, vulnerable to recruitment." Recruitment. The word tasted bitter. "You think someone is using me." "I think," the king said slowly, "that pup was left at your door deliberately. That you were meant to call for help. That someone wanted to create a connection between you and my guard, or perhaps between you and me directly, given whose number you called." My mind raced. "But I don't know anyone in your pack. I don't have connections to." "You don't need connections. You just need to be useful." He stood, moving around the desk with that predatory grace all shifters possessed. "Someone hurt that pup. Someone from within my territory, based on the scent markers my guards detected, and someone knew you would be soft-hearted enough to try to save it. Protocol be damned." He stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "So here's what's going to happen, Dr. Thorne. You're going to stay in the palace as my guest until we determine who's trying to use you as a pawn. You'll be comfortable, protected, and monitored." "I can't," I said immediately. "My clinic will be managed by my staff. Your animals will be cared for. I have patients, appointments, which will be rescheduled." His tone left no room for argument. "This isn't a negotiation. You made yourself my problem when you called me. Now, you're my responsibility, until I decide otherwise." I stood, anger finally overriding fear. "You can't just imprison me because I made a mistake. I'm not imprisoning you, I'm protecting you." He leaned closer, and I caught the scent of pine and night air. "Whoever is playing this game hurt a child to do it. Do you really think they'll hesitate to hurt you if you return home and prove useless to their plans?" The words sank in slowly, cold and terrible. He was right. If someone had orchestrated this, if they'd hurt that pup deliberately to create this connection, then I was a loose end. A human loose end, easily disposed of. "How long?" I whispered. "Until we find who's responsible." "A few days. Maybe a week." "And if you don't find them?" Something flickered across his face too fast to read. "Then we'll discuss more permanent arrangements." He moved back to his desk, dismissing me without another word. "Riker will show you to your rooms. Someone will bring clothes and anything else you need. Don't try to leave the palace grounds. I wouldn't know where to go." The king looked up one last time, and I could have sworn I saw something almost like pity in those gold-flecked eyes. "No," he said quietly. "I suppose you wouldn't. Subscribe if you believe Arya deserves someone who'll fight for her truth, not manipulate it. Because women like Arya, who've been told they're broken, need an audience that sees their worth. Don't let her story disappear into the algorithm like she disappeared from her own life." Chapter 3. The Library and the Question. The rooms they gave me were larger than my entire apartment above the clinic. A bedroom with a 4-poster bed that could sleep 4 people comfortably. A sitting area with plush chairs arranged before a fireplace that someone had already lit. A bathroom with a tub deep enough to drown in, and fixtures that gleamed like captured starlight. Everything decorated in soft creams and forest greens. Elegant but not ostentatious. A beautiful cage. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the pup's blood on my hands, heard the king's voice saying Baron like it was just another fact to catalog. Felt the weight of being a pawn in a game I didn't understand. By the time pale dawn light filtered through the heavy curtains, I'd paced the rooms 100 times and memorized every painting, every book on the small shelf, every way I was trapped. A knock at the door made me jump. "Dr. Thorne? I'm bringing breakfast." A woman's voice, soft and uncertain. I opened the door to find a young shifter barely out of her teens, holding a tray laden with more food than I could eat in a day. Her eyes were downcast, her posture submissive in a way that made my chest ache. "Thank you," I said gently. "You can just set it on the table." She scurried in, placed the tray with trembling hands, and turned to leave. "Wait." I didn't know what made me speak. "What's your name?" She froze, surprise flickering across her features. "Lena, ma'am." "Lena, do you work in the palace?" "Yes, ma'am." "In the kitchens mostly. Sometimes cleaning." She risked a glance up. Are you the one who saved the prince's pup?" "Prince's pup? Not just any shifter child then." "I helped," I said carefully. "Is the pup doing well?" "Yes, ma'am. Cook says the surgeon worked through the night. But the little one's going to be fine. Because of you." Lena's voice warmed with something like awe. "No one thought a human would. I mean, most wouldn't have. Most would have been smart enough not to get involved." I smiled without humor. "I'm not known for my self-preservation instincts." "The king says you're brave." I blinked. "The king said that?" Lena flushed. "I shouldn't have mentioned I wasn't supposed to hear, but he was talking to Captain Riker this morning, and he said you stood your ground even when you were clearly terrified, that you cared more about saving a life than protecting yourself," he said. She trailed off, looking uncertain. "What?" He said most of his own people wouldn't have shown that kind of courage. I didn't know what to do with that information, so I filed it away. "Thank you for telling me, Lena. And for the breakfast." She bobbed a curtsy and fled. I picked at the food, fresh fruit, warm bread, eggs prepared 3 different ways, and watched the sun climb higher beyond my window. I could see the gardens from here, immaculate and empty. No one walked the paths. No one enjoyed the carefully tended roses. It was all performance, beauty for the sake of showing it could be maintained. Another knock came around noon. "Dr. Thorne," Riker's voice. "The king requests your presence." Here we go. I followed him through different corridors this time, noting the layout despite knowing it was probably useless. The palace was designed like a labyrinth, easy to get lost, impossible to escape. We stopped before a set of double doors I hadn't seen last night. "The king's private library," Riker said. Something odd in his tone. "He wants to speak with you about—" "Well, he'll explain." He opened the doors and gestured me through. I stepped into paradise. Books. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, climbing the walls on shelves that reached toward a vaulted ceiling painted with constellations. Rolling ladders provided access to the highest volumes. Comfortable reading chairs nestled in alcoves. Windows flooded the space with natural light that somehow didn't fade the ancient spines. I'd died and gone to heaven. "Dr. Thorne." The king sat in one of the alcoves, a book open in his lap. He'd traded last night's formal clothes for simple black pants and a dark green shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked younger, almost approachable, almost. "Your Majesty." I remembered to bow this time. "Come, sit." He gestured to the chair across from him. I wanted to apologize for last night. I was harsh. That was unexpected enough to leave me speechless. "You saved my nephew's life," he continued. "And I repaid you by treating you like a suspect. It was unkind. You were being cautious, I managed. Someone did hurt him deliberately. Yes, which makes your kindness all the more remarkable." He closed his book, something ancient, leather-worn, and set it aside. "Riker tells me you're a reader. How would he—" "The first thing you did when entering your rooms was examine the books on the shelf. You've arranged them by author rather than leaving them as they were." A slight smile. "Details matter. I should have been disturbed that they'd watched me so closely. Instead, I felt strangely seen. Reading is an escape," I said carefully. "When the world is difficult, stories offer somewhere else to be." "Yes." Something in his voice made me look up. His eyes held a distant expression, almost sad. "They do." Silence fell between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. We were 2 people who understood the refuge of words, the salvation of other worlds. "You can use this library," he said finally. "While you're here, read anything you like. The palace library is open to all residents, but this," he gestured around us. "This is my personal collection. Most of these books can't be found anywhere else. I'd like you to have access." It was such an unexpected kindness that my throat tightened. "Thank you. There is, however, a condition." Of course there was. "Every evening, I'd like you to join me here. For an hour. We'll read, or talk, or sit in silence if you prefer, but I want." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I spend my days managing territory disputes, pack politics, and strategic alliances. I'm surrounded by people who want things from me, who see me as a tool to be wielded, or an obstacle to be overcome. I'd like 1 hour where I'm simply someone who enjoys books, speaking with someone else who does the same." I stared at him. "You want me to keep you company? If you're willing, consider it payment for the use of the library." It was bizarre, surreal. The most powerful shifter in 3 territories wanted to have book club with the human vet he was holding captive. But looking at him, at the careful hope in his expression, I realized something. He was lonely. Profoundly. Devastatingly lonely. "All right," I heard myself say. 1 hour, every evening. His smile was small but genuine. "Thank you, Dr. Thorne." "Arya," I said impulsively. "If we're going to read together, you can call me Arya." "Arya." He tested the name, and something in my chest fluttered at the sound. "Then you should call me Cade, at least here, in this room." "I don't think—" "In this room," he repeated. "I'm not a king. I'm just someone who likes books. Can you give me that? I should have said no. Should have maintained every boundary, every protocol. But there was something raw in his voice, something that resonated with my own isolation. All right, Cade. He relaxed visibly, and I realized how much tension he'd been holding. There's one more thing, he said, his tone shifting slightly. A question I need to ask you. Not as a king to a subject, but as someone trying to understand. What question? He met my eyes, and I saw vulnerability there I hadn't expected. Will you tell me why you're really alone? Why a woman with your skills, your compassion, your intelligence, has isolated herself at the edge of nowhere? What are you running from, Arya? The question hit deeper than it should have. Because he was right. I was running. Had been running for 2 years. And somehow, sitting in this library with this dangerous, lonely king, I felt the first stirrings of an urge to stop. Chapter 4. The Truth in Twilight. I didn't answer his question that first day. Instead, I chose a book from his shelves, a collection of folk tales from the old world, and settled into the chair across from him. We read in silence for the full hour, the only sound the occasional turn of a page, and the crackling of the fire someone had lit despite the mild weather. When Riker came to escort me back to my rooms, Cade looked up from his book and said simply, "Tomorrow?" I nodded. The pattern repeated for 3 days. We read. Sometimes he'd recommend a volume, explaining its significance or sharing a passage he found meaningful. Sometimes I'd ask about the history of certain texts, and he'd launch into explanations that revealed a mind as sharp as any scholar's. But we didn't talk about anything personal, didn't breach the careful distance we'd established, until the 4th evening, when I found him staring at an empty fireplace instead of reading. Cade? I used his name hesitantly, still uncomfortable with the informality. He looked up, and I saw exhaustion in every line of his face. I had to execute someone today. The words hung in the air between us. One of my own guards, he continued, his voice hollow. He was selling information to the Northridge Pack, helped them coordinate raids on our border settlements. 3 families dead because of his betrayal. I set down my book. I'm sorry. He begged for mercy, cried like a child. Cade's hands clenched on the arms of his chair. I gave him a quick death instead of the slow one-pack law demands for traitors. I thought I was being merciful. But his mate screamed at me that I was a monster, and she's right. I am. You're a king, I said quietly. You did what your position demanded. Does that make it easier, knowing I had no choice? He laughed, sharp and bitter. I've killed 17 people since taking the throne. 17 lives I've ended because pack law, territory security, or political necessity demanded it. I remember every face, every name, and I'll carry them until I die. I didn't have words of comfort, didn't have platitudes about duty or sacrifice. So instead, I asked, "Do you want to tell me about them?" He looked at me like I'd offered him something precious. The first was a rogue shifter who'd been killing human children in the border towns, he began. And for the next hour, he talked about each death, each decision, each moment, when being king meant sacrificing his own humanity. I listened. When he finally fell silent, the room had grown dark around us. Someone had lit candles at some point. Lena, probably, moving so quietly we hadn't noticed. "Why did you let me tell you all that?" Cade asked. "Because you needed to. And because..." I hesitated. "Because I understand what it's like to carry things alone." "Your turn then." His eyes found mine in the candlelight. "Tell me what you're carrying, Arya." Maybe it was the intimacy of the darkness. Maybe it was the vulnerability he'd shown me. Maybe I was just tired of holding everything inside. "I was married once," I heard myself say, "to another veterinarian. We met in school, fell in love over midnight study sessions, and shared dreams of opening a practice together. He was human, kind, brilliant. Everything I thought I wanted." Cade waited, patient. We tried for 3 years to have children. 3 years of tests and treatments and slowly growing desperation. Until finally, a doctor told me what I'd suspected for months. I'm infertile, completely. There's no treatment, no miracle cure. Just nothing. The word tasted like ash. My husband said it didn't matter, that he loved me, not the children we might have had. But I saw how he looked at pregnant women, heard the carefully controlled grief in his voice when his brother announced his wife was expecting. And I knew. Knew what? That I was taking something from him he'd never admit he wanted. That every day he stayed with me was a day he chose duty over desire. I wrapped my arms around myself. So I left. Told him I didn't love him anymore, that I wanted different things. Made it easy for him to let me go. Did he? He remarried within a year. His new wife is pregnant now. I smiled, and it hurt. So yes, I made the right choice. Or you made the choice that hurt you most. Cade said softly, because you thought that's what you deserved. The accuracy of it stole my breath. I opened the clinic because I wanted to be useful. To matter. Even if I couldn't be a mother. Animals don't care if you're broken. They don't judge you for failing at the one thing your body was supposedly designed to do. Tears burned my eyes. I thought if I stayed busy enough, isolated enough, it wouldn't hurt anymore. But it does. Every single day, it does. Cade stood and moved to my chair, kneeling beside it so we were eye level. Listen to me. Your worth is not determined by your ability to bear children. You saved my nephew's life. You show compassion to creatures most people ignore. You're brilliant, courageous, and kind. Those things matter, Arya. They matter more than biology. You don't understand. I do. His hand covered mine, warm and solid. I understand being reduced to a single function. I'm a king, which means I'm a breeding stud for the royal line. Every pack in the territory has offered me their daughters, their sisters, their most fertile females, because that's all I am to them. A genetic legacy to be continued. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the same ache in his eyes. I don't want to be chosen for my bloodline, he continued. I want to be chosen for who I am, for my mind, my character, my soul. I want someone to see past the crown and the power and find me, just me. That's why you're lonely. I whispered. Yes. His thumb brushed across my knuckles. I'm surrounded by people, and utterly alone. We sat like that for a long moment, two broken people finding unexpected understanding in the darkness. Thank you, I finally said, for telling me I matter. Thank you for hearing what I couldn't say to anyone else. He stood, but didn't move away. Arya, I want to ask you something, and I need you to understand I'm not asking as a king. I'm asking as someone who's found a rare connection with another person. My heart began to race. What? Would you consider staying here? Not as my captive, but as... He paused, searching for words. As my friend, my companion, someone I can talk to, be honest with. Someone who sees me, not the crown. Cade, I don't. You don't have to answer now. Take time to think about it. We still haven't found who hurt my nephew, so you'll be here at least another week. Just consider it. His eyes held mine. Please, I should have said no immediately. Should have reminded him of every reason this was dangerous, inappropriate, impossible, but I didn't, because for the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel quite so alone. I'll think about it, I whispered. His smile was worth every risk. That night, I lay awake in my too large bed, replaying the evening in my mind, the way Cade had looked at me, the way his hand had felt on mine, the strange terrifying possibility that maybe I could have something here. Not love that was impossible, but connection, understanding, a place to belong. I was so lost in thought that I almost missed the sound. Soft, deliberate, the scrape of something against my window. I sat up slowly, heart pounding. My rooms were on the 3rd floor. Nothing should be at my window except birds. Another scrape. Then a shadow moved beyond the glass. Someone was climbing up to my window, and they clearly didn't want to be seen. Chapter 5. The Midnight Visitor. I didn't scream. Some instinct told me that whoever was climbing to my 3rd floor window in the dead of night didn't want attention any more than I did. And if I alerted the guards, if this turned into a confrontation before I understood what was happening, someone would die. Possibly me. I slid out of bed silently, grabbing the only weapon I had, a heavy brass candlestick from the mantel. My hands didn't shake. That clinical detachment that served me in surgery kicked in. turning fear into cold assessment. The window latch moved, unlocked from the outside, which should have been impossible. Then the window slid open, and a figure pulled itself through with practiced ease. Not a man, a woman. She froze when she saw me standing there, candlestick raised. We stared at each other in the moonlight streaming through the open window. She was young, maybe 25, with silver blonde hair pulled into a braid and eyes that gleamed gold even in the darkness. Beautiful in that otherworldly way all shifters were, and terrified. "Please don't scream," she whispered. "I just need to talk to you. You could have knocked on my door. The guards wouldn't have let me through. They have orders no one from the pack is supposed to contact you without the king's permission." She glanced at the window behind her, as if checking for pursuit. "I'm risking execution just being here." I lowered the candlestick slightly. "Who are you?" "My name is Elena. Prince Garrett's mate." She saw my confusion and clarified. "The pup you saved was my son." Understanding crashed through me. "You came to thank me." "No." Her voice cracked. "I came to warn you." The candlestick went back up. "About what?" "About the king. About what he wants from you." Elena stepped closer, her movements slow and non-threatening. "Please, Dr. Thorne, I know you have no reason to trust me, but I swear I mean you no harm. I need to tell you the truth before you get hurt." Every rational instinct said to call for the guards. This was exactly the kind of situation Cade had warned me about, people trying to manipulate me, use me. But she'd said son. She was the mother of the pup I'd saved. "Talk," I said finally, "but stay by the window where I can see you." Relief flooded her features. "Thank you. God, thank you." She sank onto the window seat, and in the moonlight I could see how exhausted she looked. Dark circles under her eyes, clothes that seemed hastily thrown on. The trembling in her hands. "The king told you someone hurt my son deliberately," she began. "That's true. What he didn't tell you is why. Because whoever did it wanted to create a connection between me and the palace." "No." Elena's laugh was bitter. "Because the king ordered it." The room tilted. "That's impossible." "He was devastated when he learned. He's a brilliant actor. He's had to be. To survive this long." Elena leaned forward. "Urgent. Dr. Thorne Arya, the king, has been alone since his mate died 5 years ago. Pack law says he needs to produce an heir, but he refuses every suitable female we present. Says he won't take a mate who only wants his power." "What does that have to do with?" "He's obsessed with finding someone who'll choose him for himself. Someone who doesn't know about pack politics or royal obligations. Someone who'll see past the crown." Her eyes bored into mine. "Someone human." My mouth went dry. "For months, he's had his people watching you, studying your patterns, your habits, your weaknesses. He learned about your failed marriage, your infertility, your isolation, and he crafted a perfect trap." "No. The number in your phone? 1 digit off from Dr. Reeves? That wasn't an accident. His people changed it, made sure that when you were desperate enough, scared enough, you'd call him instead." I shook my head, but pieces were clicking into place with horrible clarity. "My son was never in real danger." Elena continued, tears streaming down her face now. "The wounds were carefully calculated, dramatic but survivable. He was drugged to seem worse than he was, all so the king could be the one you called. So he could play the hero. So he could bring you here and make you depend on him." "Why are you telling me this?" I whispered. "Because I saw how he looked at you this evening. I was delivering a report to Captain Riker, and I saw you in the library together. The way he touched your hand, the way you looked at him." She stood, moving closer despite my raised candlestick. "He's going to make you fall in love with him, Arya. And then he's going to ask you to be his mate. His queen. That's insane. I'm human. I'm barren. I can't give him. He doesn't care. He told his council he'd rather have no children than mate with someone who sees him as a title." Elena grabbed my arms, desperate. "But don't you see? If you say yes, if you become his queen, you'll be trapped here forever. Human queens don't survive long in shifter courts. The politics, the poison, the endless assassination attempts. You'll be dead within a year. Then why would he want? Because he's selfish. The words burst out of her like a dam breaking, because he'd rather have 1 year of being truly seen than a lifetime of duty and loneliness. And he doesn't care that it will destroy you in the process. I pulled away from her grip, my mind racing. Everything she was saying contradicted what I'd seen, what I'd felt. Cade's vulnerability had been real. I was certain of it, wasn't I? I don't believe you, I said, but my voice wavered. Then explain how you got his private number. Explain why a king would waste hours reading with a veterinarian. Explain why he's kept you here long after the investigation turned up nothing. Elena's voice softened. I know you want to believe he cares about you. God, I understand that loneliness, that desperate need to matter to someone, but he's using it against you. Get out. Arya, get out. My voice cracked. If you're telling the truth, if any of this is real, then you've already risked enough. Leave before someone finds you here. Elena stared at me for a long moment, something like pity in her eyes. Then she moved to the window. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry he chose you. She climbed out and disappeared into the darkness, leaving me alone with doubt eating through everything I'd started to believe. Hit that like button if Arya's confusion is your confusion too. If you've ever questioned whether someone's love was real or just perfectly crafted manipulation, she's drowning in doubt right now, and your engagement is the only way stories like hers, stories about women reclaiming their power, get told. Don't scroll past her pain. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I sat in the chair by the fire, watching the flames die to embers, replaying every interaction with Cade through this new, horrible lens. The concern in his voice on the phone was that calculation? The library access, the vulnerability, the careful building of trust, was all of it manipulation? The way he'd looked at me when I shared my deepest shame, had he been feeding off my pain? But no. I'd seen something real in his eyes, had felt the genuine loneliness, the desperate need for connection. You couldn't fake that kind of raw honesty, could you? Dawn crept through my windows, gray and uncertain. A knock at my door made me jump. Arya? It's Cade. His voice sent my heart into my throat. I stood, smoothed my nightgown with shaking hands, and opened the door. He stood there in simple clothes, holding 2 cups of tea, looking tired but pleased to see me. I know it's early, but I couldn't sleep and thought you might. He stopped, seeing my face. What's wrong? This was it, the moment of decision. I could confront him with Elena's accusations, see how he reacted, try to determine truth from lies, or I could pretend everything was fine, play along until I understood the game better. Did you hurt that pup? The question came out before I could stop it. Did you orchestrate everything to bring me here? The color drained from his face. Who told you that? Not a denial, not an immediate, of course not. Just, who told you? And in that heartbeat of hesitation, I had my answer. Chapter 6. The King's Confession. Arya, please. I stepped back, shaking my head. Just answer the question. Yes or no. Did you orchestrate this? Cade set the teacups down carefully on the hallway table, his movements controlled despite the tension radiating from every line of his body. May I come in? This conversation shouldn't happen in the corridor. This conversation shouldn't happen at all. But I moved aside, let him enter, closed the door. If we were going to destroy whatever fragile thing had been building between us, better to do it in private. He stood in the center of my room, looking somehow smaller than he had yesterday, diminished. The pup was never seriously hurt, he said finally. The wounds were real, but carefully done, supervised by my surgeon to ensure no permanent damage. He was sedated to mask the fact that he was already healing. And yes, I arranged for the number in your contacts to be altered. The admission felt like a physical blow. Why? Because I've been alone for 5 years. His voice cracked. Because I'm drowning in duty and politics and people who see me as a tool to be used. Because I've had 27 eligible females paraded before me, and not one of them could tell me what I liked to read, what made me laugh, what kept me awake at night. They knew the king. None of them knew me. So you decided to manufacture someone who would? No. He moved closer, desperation clear on his face. I decided to find someone who already saw past appearances. Someone who valued compassion over power. someone who'd risk their own safety to save a life. You tested me. The realization was nauseating. The pup, the phone call, bringing me here, it was all a test to see if I was worthy of your attention. It was a test to see if what I suspected about you was true, that you were different, that you were real. His hands clenched at his sides. And you are. Everything I saw in you, everything I hoped for, it's all genuine. But we're not. The words tasted like poison. This connection you've been building, these conversations, this trust, it's all based on lies. The circumstances were manipulated, Cade said fiercely. But my feelings are real. Everything I told you yesterday, everything I shared that was truth, Arya. I've never been that honest with anyone. How can I believe anything you say now? Because I'm telling you this. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated and frightened in equal measure. I could have lied, could have denied everything, blamed Elena for spreading malicious rumors. But I'm standing here confessing because I can't. I won't build something real on a foundation of deception. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to so badly it physically hurt. Who else knows? I asked quietly. Captain Riker, my surgeon. Elena and her mate, Garrett, they were the ones who volunteered their son after I explained what I needed. He saw my expression and added quickly. They trust me. They knew he'd be safe. But Elena came to you anyway? Last night. She climbed through my window. Surprise flickered across his face. That's unexpected. She should have trusted that I'd tell you the truth eventually. When? After I agreed to stay? After I fell? I stopped, unable to finish the sentence. After you fell in love with me, he finished softly. That was the plan. Make you care about me before revealing how we met. Hope you'd understand why I did it. That's manipulation, Cade. I know. His voice broke. I know what it is, and I know it's wrong. But I've been so alone. And when my scouts told me about the human vet who lived on the border, who spent her life saving animals no one else cared about, who'd isolated herself because she thought she was broken, I saw myself in you. And I thought maybe, if I could just get you to see me the same way, maybe we could be less alone together. Tears burned my eyes. You can't build love on lies. No. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the gold flecks swimming in his eyes. But you can build it on truth that comes after. I'm giving you that truth now. All of it. No more secrets. How do I know there aren't more? Because I'm going to tell you everything. Right now. He took a shaking breath. The curse on my bloodline. The reason I need a mate who chooses me freely. The prophecy that says if I force or manipulate someone into loving me, my entire line will end. All of it. I stared at him. What curse? Sit down, he said gently. This is going to take a while. We sat across from each other in the chairs by the dead fire, and Cade told me everything. About his great-grandmother, who'd been a powerful seer. About her vision of a king so consumed by duty that he forgot how to love. About her curse or blessing, depending on how you saw it, that no Blackthorn king could produce an heir unless his mate chose him freely, knowing all of who he was, and loved him anyway. My father tried to circumvent it, Cade said, staring at his hands. He took a mate who seemed suitable, who said the right things. But year after year, no children came. He grew desperate, started consulting dark magic, trying to break the curse. It drove him mad. In the end, my mother killed him to protect the pack. And you? I was born after his death. Apparently, in his final moments, he truly understood what my great-grandmother had been trying to teach him. He apologized to my mother, told her he finally saw her, really saw her, and 9 months later, I existed. His laugh was hollow, born from a deathbed revelation. So, you need someone to choose you freely, I said slowly. But you manipulated me into being here. Doesn't that violate the curse? I don't know. The admission clearly cost him. That's the terrifying part. I brought you here under false pretenses, but I told myself it didn't count because I planned to confess before asking you to be my mate. But now I wonder if I've already ruined everything. We sat in heavy silence. There's more, he said finally. Something else you should know. What else could there possibly be? I'm dying. The words sucked the air from the room. What? The curse. If I don't find true love, if I can't produce an heir by my 35th birthday, I die. The bloodline ends. The pack fractures into civil war. He met my eyes. I turned 35 in 6 months. My hands started shaking. 6 months. I've known for years. Watched the deadline approach while every potential mate proved unsuitable. And then I found you. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. My last chance. And I've destroyed it by being exactly what the curse warned against, a man who manipulates instead of loves. Why tell me this now? Why not just, because I won't do it anymore? He stood, moving to the window, his back to me. Because you deserve to make your choice with full information. And because even if it means I die, even if it means the pack falls apart, I won't trick you into loving me. He turned back, and there were tears on his face. So here's the truth. All of it. I brought you here through manipulation. I orchestrated circumstances to make you vulnerable and dependent. I've spent the past week trying to make you care about me. All of that is true. But it's also true that I've fallen in love with you. Real love. The kind that wants your happiness more than my survival. Cade, I'm going to have Riker take you home today. Back to your clinic, your life, your freedom. And I want you to forget about all of this. Forget about the curse and the deadline and the dying king. Just live. Be happy. Save your animals and read your books and find whatever peace you can. You're sending me away. I'm setting you free. His smile was devastating. Maybe that's what my great-grandmother's curse was really about. Learning that love means letting go. He moved toward the door. Wait. The word burst out of me. Just wait. He paused, hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. I need time, I said. To think. To process all of this. But don't send me away yet. Give me a few days to figure out what I'm feeling. Arya, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I am. I stood, legs unsteady. You manipulated the circumstances. That's true. But everything that happened after the conversations, the vulnerability, the connection that was real, for both of us, I felt it. He turned slowly. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know yet. I don't know if I can forgive the manipulation. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if what I feel is real, or if it's just Stockholm Syndrome and loneliness. I wrapped my arms around myself. But I know I'm not ready to walk away. Not yet. Hope and fear warred on his face. How much time? 3 days. Let me think for 3 days. And during that time, no more library visits. No more manufactured intimacy. I need space to figure out what's true. 3 days, he agreed quietly. And then I'll give you my answer. He nodded once, sharp and final, and left. I stood alone in my room, watching the sun climb higher beyond my windows, and wondered if I was making the biggest mistake of my life, or the bravest choice I'd ever made. Chapter 7. The Hollow Freedom. The 3 days felt like 3 years. True to his word, Cade stayed away. No library visits, no chance encounters in corridors, no carefully orchestrated moments of connection. The only proof he existed was the steady stream of books that appeared at my door each morning. Always something he thought I'd enjoy. Always with a small note in his elegant handwriting. Day 1. This one made me laugh. I hope it brings you some light in the darkness. Day 2. The protagonist reminds me of you, brave without realizing it. Day 3. Whatever you decide, thank you for seeing me. No one else ever has. I read the books, kept the notes, and tried desperately to untangle my feelings from the manipulation that had created them. Lena brought my meals, her eyes filled with questions she was too well trained to ask. Elena came once, slipping into my room, while I sat staring at an unread page. I'm sorry, she said without preamble. For how I told you, for making it sound worse than it was. Was it not that bad? I asked, not looking up. It was manipulation, but it wasn't malicious. She sat beside me. The king, he's a good man trapped in an impossible situation. I wanted you to see the trap, but I should have trusted that you were smart enough to recognize it yourself. Why did you volunteer your son? Because Cade has been slowly dying for 5 years. Not from the curse, from loneliness. From being used and desired and never actually known. Elena's voice softened. When he came to us with his plan, desperate and ashamed, asking if there was any way to meet you organically. Garrett and I looked at each other and knew this was his last hope. So yes, we volunteered our son for a controlled injury that our surgeon supervised, because we love our king, and because we wanted him to have a chance at happiness. Even if it meant tricking me. We thought you'd understand once you knew him. She met my eyes. Were we wrong? I didn't answer. After she left, I stood at my window watching the gardens below. Perfect, pristine, empty. On the afternoon of the third day, Riker knocked on my door. The king has invited you to dinner tonight, in his private chambers, not the library, he says. Riker paused, looking uncomfortable. He says it's time for your answer, and he wants to hear it somewhere honest. His chambers. He's not trying to seduce you, Riker said quickly. It's where he goes when he needs to be himself. No throne room posturing. No royal facade. Just him. I studied Riker's face. You care about him. I've served him for 10 years. I've seen him shoulder impossible burdens with grace. I've watched him choose his people's welfare over his own happiness again and again. And I've seen the light go out of his eyes a little more each year. Riker's jaw tightened. Then you showed up, and he laughed. Actually laughed. Do you know how rare that is? So I'm supposed to save him? Be his reward for suffering? No. Riker's voice was firm. You're supposed to decide if you can forgive him for being desperate enough to make terrible choices, and if you can see past those choices to who he actually is. He left me with that. I went to dinner. Cade's private chambers were nothing like I'd expected. No opulence, no display of wealth or power. Just a large room with comfortable furniture, bookshelves lining every wall, a small kitchen area, and windows that overlooked the forest beyond the palace grounds. He stood by those windows when Riker let me in, wearing simple clothes and looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. You said you wanted my answer. I do. But first, I want to give you something. He moved to a desk and picked up a folder. Your freedom. Documented and witnessed. He handed it to me. Inside were legal papers, a declaration that I was free to leave whenever I chose, that no pack law bound me, that the king himself guaranteed my safety and autonomy. I had these drawn up yesterday, he explained. Regardless of your answer tonight, you're free, completely, no strings, no obligations. I stared at the papers, then at him. You're really letting me go. I'm really letting you choose. He moved to the small table where he'd set out dinner, simple food, nothing fancy, just 2 plates and 2 glasses of wine. Will you eat with me? One last time? I sat. We ate in silence for a while, the tension thick enough to choke on. I've made my decision, I said finally. He set down his fork carefully, his hands steady despite the fear in his eyes. I'm listening. What you did was wrong. The manipulation, the orchestration, using my loneliness against me. All of it was wrong. Yes, but... I took a breath. I understand why you did it. Not excuse it. Not forgive it yet. But understand it. You were desperate, dying, and you saw someone you thought could save you, so you did whatever you could to reach them. That doesn't make it right. No. It doesn't. I met his eyes. But here's what I realized over these 3 days. You told me the truth. You confessed when you could have lied. You gave me the choice to leave even though it might kill you, and that means something. Hope flickered across his face, quickly suppressed. I'm not in love with you, I continued, and watched that hope die. I can't be. Not yet. Not when I don't know if what I feel is real or manufactured. I understand. But I think I could be. In love with you, I mean. If we started over, if we built something real, from truth instead of manipulation. He looked up sharply. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to try, not as your captive, not as someone you orchestrated into your life, but as... I searched for the word, as someone who's choosing to stay and see what happens. Who's choosing you, knowing the curse and the deadline and the risk. Choosing freely. The silence stretched so long I thought I'd miscalculated. Then, you'd stay, knowing I manipulated you? I'd stay knowing you confessed. Knowing you chose honesty over self-preservation. Knowing you're imperfect and desperate and trying. I reached across the table, taking his hand. I'd stay to see if the man I glimpsed in the library is real. If what we could build from here might be worth the risk. I don't deserve this, he whispered. Probably not, but I don't deserve to be alone either. I smiled, small and uncertain. Maybe we can be undeserving together. He stood abruptly, moving around the table, and pulled me to my feet. His hands framed my face, gentle and reverent. I will spend every day proving I'm worth this chance. I swear it. I know. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his lips brushed mine soft, questioning, full of desperate hope. The kiss tasted like new beginnings. We talked through the night, about what starting over meant, about boundaries and trust and rebuilding, about the curse and the deadline and what happened if we failed. 6 months isn't a lot of time, I said as dawn crept across the sky. Then we'll make every day count. He pulled me closer on the couch where we'd ended up, my head on his shoulder, his arm around me. No more manipulation, no more secrets, just honest trying. And if it doesn't work, if I can't fall in love with you in time, then I'll die knowing I tried. That I had something real, even if just for a little while. He pressed a kiss to my hair. That's more than most people get. I should have been terrified. Should have run from the pressure, the impossibility, the sheer weight of what he was asking. But instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. A week later, everything shattered. I was in the clinic. Cade had insisted on updating new equipment, better supplies, everything I'd dreamed of having. We'd fallen into a rhythm. Mornings at the clinic, afternoons in the library, evenings in his chambers, talking and laughing, and slowly building something that felt real. I was beginning to believe we might actually make it. Then Lena burst through the door, her face pale with terror. Dr. Thorne, Arya, you need to come back to the palace. Now. What's wrong? The king. He's announced his engagement. The world stopped. What? To Princess Celeste from the Northridge Pack. The ceremony is in 3 days. Tears streamed down Lena's face. I don't understand. I thought you and he were— I didn't hear the rest. I ran. Drop a comment telling Arya what you would do in her position. Because right now, she thinks she's alone in this nightmare, just like you might feel alone watching this. Women who fight for love in impossible situations need witnesses. They need you to say, I see you. I hear you. Your fight matters. Don't let her face this silence alone. Chapter 8. The Wedding and the Wolf. I stormed through the palace like a hurricane, barely registering the guards who scrambled out of my way. Riker tried to intercept me at the king's wing, but I shoved past him with strength I didn't know I had. Arya, wait. Where is he? In the throne room, but you can't just— I was already gone. The throne room doors stood open, and inside I could see them. Cade seated on his throne, looking carved from stone, and beside him a woman who embodied everything I wasn't. Tall, graceful, with flowing auburn hair and the kind of effortless beauty that made mortals weep. Princess Celeste. She was laughing at something one of the courtiers said, her hand resting possessively on the arm of Cade's throne. He looked miserable. Our eyes met across the crowded room, and something in his expression broke. Clear the room, he said, his voice cutting through the chatter. Your Majesty? Celeste's smile faltered. We were just discussing the ceremony arrangements. Now. The command in that single word sent everyone scrambling. Within moments, only 4 of us remained. Cade, Celeste, Riker, and me. Would someone like to explain? I said, my voice shaking with barely contained fury. What the hell is going on? Celeste looked between us, understanding dawning. Oh. You're the human. She said it like someone might say, you're the stain on my carpet. Celeste, give us a moment, Cade said. Absolutely not. If this person has something to say about our engagement, I have a right to hear it. She moved closer to Cade, marking territory. After all, I'm going to be queen. Over my dead body, I snarled. That can be arranged. Enough. Cade stood, and power radiated from him in waves that made my knees weak. Celeste, leave. Now. This conversation doesn't concern you. Our wedding is in 3 days and you're dismissing me for a human? Her beautiful face twisted with rage. I knew this was a mistake. My father warned me your father threatened war if I didn't agree to this marriage. Cade's voice was flat, dead. So yes, this concerns you. But this conversation doesn't. She stared at him for a long moment, then turned and swept from the room, her exit dripping with wounded dignity. The doors slammed shut behind her. Arya, don't. I held up a hand. Just tell me the truth. All of it. Now. He sank back onto the throne like it weighed 1,000 pounds. 3 days ago, while you were at the clinic, an emissary from Northridge arrived. They had proof that my people killed Princess Celeste's brother during a border skirmish 2 months ago. Did you? Yes. He was leading raids on our settlements, killing civilians. I gave the order myself. His hands clenched on the throne's arms. But they have evidence, now documentation, witnesses, everything needed to justify a war. And they're giving me a choice: marry Celeste and unite our packs, or face invasion. My anger faltered. They're forcing you. They're leveraging the one thing they know I can't ignore: my people's safety. If I refuse, hundreds will die in a war we might not win. If I agree, he looked at me, and I saw the devastation in his eyes. If I agree, I lose you. But my people survive. What about the curse? You said you needed someone who chose you freely. Celeste knows about the curse. She doesn't care. She's willing to risk it for the political alliance. His laugh was hollow. And maybe that's what I deserve. Maybe the curse will kill me for trying to have happiness when my duty demands sacrifice. So you were just going to marry her? Without even telling me? I was going to tell you yesterday, but you were so happy at the clinic. You were laughing, Arya. Actually laughing. And I couldn't. His voice broke. I couldn't take that away from you. Not yet. You coward. Tears burned my eyes. You were going to let me find out from palace gossip? Let me show up thinking we had something real only to discover you'd already chosen someone else? I chose my people over my happiness. Same choice I've been making my entire life. He stood again, moving down from the throne. But I won't pretend it doesn't destroy me. I won't pretend losing you doesn't feel like dying. Then don't marry her. And let my people suffer? Let innocent families die because I'm selfish enough to want love? He shook his head. That's not who I am. No. I moved closer, anger shifting into something fiercer. You're the man who confessed his manipulation because honesty mattered more than winning, who gave me freedom even when it might kill you, who laughs at stupid jokes in borrowed books and cries over executions that haunt you. I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. You're the man I've been falling in love with, and I'm not letting you go without a fight. Hope and agony warred in his expression. Arya, tell me there's a way out, some loophole, some alternative, something. There isn't. I've had my advisors search for 3 days. It's marriage or war. Then we fight, not with armies, with the truth. Ideas were forming, desperate and half-formed. You said they have evidence. Can we discredit it? It's genuine. Can we offer them something else? Territory, resources, trade agreements. They want the throne. Celeste on it gives them control of both packs. Then, the explosion shook the entire palace. Riker was moving before the sound finished echoing, shoving both Cade and me to the ground as debris rained from the ceiling. Alarms blared, shouting erupted from the corridors outside. Report! Cade barked into the chaos. A guard burst through the doors, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. Attack on the East Wing, Your Majesty. Multiple hostiles, coordinated assault. They're targeting the royal family. How many? At least 20. Maybe more. They're wearing Northridge colors. Cade's eyes went cold. Where's Princess Celeste? In her quarters, last we knew. Another explosion. Closer this time. The chandeliers swayed dangerously. It's a coup, Riker said grimly. They never intended the wedding to happen. They're using it as cover. Cade was already moving. Get Arya to the safe room, now. No. I grabbed his arm. If you're fighting, I'm helping. You're human. You'll die. I'm a doctor. I'll save the ones who don't. I met his eyes. You said we were building something real. Real means I don't run when things get dangerous. A smile ghosted across his lips despite the chaos. You're insane. You're marrying someone else in 3 days. We're both insane. Not anymore. He pulled me close, kissed me hard and desperate. If we survive this, I'm choosing you. War be damned. If we survive this, I'm saying yes. Another explosion. Closer. Riker, get her a weapon. Something simple. Cade was shifting as he spoke, his form rippling and changing. And stay with her. If anything happens to her, He didn't finish. His body completed the transformation, and suddenly a massive black wolf stood where the king had been, 7 feet tall at the shoulder, eyes burning gold, radiating lethal power. The beast. From my nightmares. The man I loved. He howled a sound that shook my bones and charged toward the chaos. The next hour was hell. I'd seen violence before. Animal attacks, car accidents, the occasional bar fight that ended up in my clinic. But this was war. Shifters tearing into each other with savage efficiency, blood on marble floors, bodies in royal corridors. The beautiful palace transformed into an abattoir. Riker kept me moving, away from the worst of it. But I stopped at every injured person we passed, performed triage, stopped bleeding, did what I could with the supplies Riker commandeered from the palace infirmary. He's losing too much blood, I said, pressing down on a guard's leg wound. I need. Here. A young shifter, barely 20, thrust bandages at me. What else? Hold pressure here while I check his other injuries. We worked together, this stranger and I, saving one of their own. When the guard's breathing stabilized, the young shifter looked at me with wonder. You're the human, the one the king loves. I'm a doctor. Now help me move him somewhere safer. We dragged the guard into an empty room, barricaded the door, and I ran back toward the sounds of combat. Riker cursed but followed. You're going to get yourself killed. Then protect me better. I found Lena cowering in an alcove, a cut on her arm bleeding freely. Arya, thank God. Let me see. I was bandaging her wound when I heard the roar. It shook the palace, made the walls tremble, and I knew, with horrible certainty, that it was Cade. Stay here, I told Lena, and ran. I found him in the throne room. He'd shifted back to human form, never a good sign, meant he was too injured to maintain his wolf shape. Blood matted his hair, soaked his torn clothes. He was on his knees, 3 attackers circling him like vultures. And standing by the throne, watching with cold satisfaction, was Princess Celeste. Shoot him, she said calmly. Make it look like the assassins did it. One of the attackers raised a crossbow. I moved without thinking, threw myself between Cade and the weapon just as it fired. The bolt meant for his heart buried itself in my shoulder instead. The pain was blinding. Distantly, I heard Cade scream my name, felt him catch me as I fell. Then everything dissolved into chaos and agony. You idiot, he was saying, his hands pressing against my wound. You beautiful, stupid, brave idiot. Couldn't let them kill you. Each word cost me. Blood filled my mouth. Stay with me, don't you dare. Kill them both, Celeste ordered. We can frame this however we. She never finished. Cade's transformation was instantaneous. One moment he was cradling me, the next the beast had launched itself at Celeste with murderous intent. She screamed. The throne room doors exploded inward and royal guards poured through the real ones, Cade's people. They saw their king, massive and terrible, holding a cowering princess by the throat. Saw me bleeding on the floor. Saw the attackers in Northridge colors. Stand down, Riker's voice boomed. All of you, drop your weapons. The attackers had no choice. Within moments, they were surrounded, disarmed, restrained. Cade shifted back, still holding Celeste. Explain. Now. My father, she gasped. He planned it. The marriage was a distraction. We were going to kill you during the ceremony, blame it on dissidents, take the throne. And if I'd refused the marriage? War. We would have won. Either way, you lose. Wrong. Cade's smile was terrifying. You lose. Your father loses. And my mate, he looked at me, and his expression softened impossibly. Lives. He dropped Celeste into Riker's custody and was at my side in an instant. Hospital, he said. Now. Move. They carried me through halls, still echoing with combat, but I barely noticed. I was focused on Cade's face above mine, on the tears streaming down his cheeks. Don't die, he was whispering. Please, Arya. Don't die. I just found you. I just chose you. Don't leave me alone again. Not going anywhere. I managed. Too stubborn. His laugh was broken. Yes, you are. Hold on to that stubbornness. Hold on for me. Always. I woke 2 days later in a hospital bed, bandaged and sore but alive. Cade sat beside me, asleep in a chair, his hand wrapped around mine. He looked terrible, bruised, exhausted, like he hadn't left my side since the attack. Cade, I whispered. His eyes flew open, gold and human and beautiful. You're awake. Thank God, you're awake. What happened? You took a crossbow bolt meant for me, nearly died, gave me the worst 2 days of my life. He pressed my hand to his lips, and broke the curse. I blinked. What? You chose me. Freely. Knowing everything. Knowing I was about to marry someone else. Knowing it might mean war. Knowing you could die. You chose me anyway. His voice cracked. The curse broke the moment you stepped in front of that bolt. My court seer confirmed it. You saved my life and freed my bloodline in one ridiculously heroic moment. Oh. I processed that. Did we win? We won. Celeste and her father are in custody. The Northridge Pack's council has denounced the coup and sued for peace. And I've declared to every pack in the territory that you're my mate, my queen. If they want war over a human on the throne, they can bring it. That's very romantic. In a terrifying sort of way. You bring out my dramatic side. He climbed carefully onto the bed beside me, mindful of my injuries. Arya, I have a question to ask you. And I'm asking as myself, not as a king, not as someone desperate or dying, just as a man who's completely in love with you. My heart hammered. Ask, will you marry me? Will you stay with me, rule beside me, put up with my impossible schedule and dangerous life and political nightmares? Will you let me spend every day proving I'm worthy of the choice you made? I pretended to consider it. Will there be books? So many books. And animals? Can I keep running my clinic? I'll build you the best veterinary hospital in the territory. And you'll stop trying to die heroically? Only if you do the same. I smiled. Then yes, I'll marry you. He kissed me, gentle and reverent, like I was something precious he'd almost lost. I love you, he whispered against my lips. I love your courage and your compassion and your stubborn refusal to let anyone tell you what you're worth. I love you too, even though you're dramatic and manipulative and have terrible self-preservation instincts. We're perfect for each other, perfectly disastrous, the best kind of love. 3 months later, I stood in the palace gardens, wearing a dress that managed to be both elegant and practical because I'd insisted on pockets, and Cade had made it happen. The entire territory had come to witness the human veterinarian marry their king. Lena stood beside me as my maid of honor, beaming. Riker stood with Cade, looking proud and vaguely amused. And Elena held her son, the pup I'd saved, now healthy and giggling at everything. Ready? Cade whispered as we prepared to walk down the aisle together. Because I'd refused to be given away, like property, and he'd loved me more for it. Terrified, I admitted. Good, me too. He laced his fingers through mine. But we're terrified together. The best kind of terrified. We walked down the aisle, 2 broken people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to build something real. Past the courtiers who still whispered about the human queen, past the packs, who'd come to judge whether love could really break curses. We spoke our vows under the afternoon sun, promising truth and courage and stubborn loyalty. When Cade kissed me, sealing our bond, I heard it. The howl of 100 wolves, celebrating their king's happiness. I'd made a mistake that night, calling the wrong number in desperation, but it had led me here, to this moment, to this impossible love, and I wouldn't change a single thing. Epilogue. 6 months after the wedding, I was cataloging new arrivals in the veterinary hospital's supply room, when Cade appeared in the doorway, looking nervous. "We have a situation," he said. My heart dropped. "Another coup? Border dispute? Political assassination?" "Worse." He took my hand. "I'm going to be a father." I stared at him. "That's impossible. Remember how the curse broke when you chose me?" His smile was tentative, wondering. "Apparently, it didn't just save my bloodline, it healed yours too. Our court seer says the magic recognized your sacrifice and..." He placed his hand on my stomach. "Made impossible things possible." I couldn't breathe. "I'm pregnant?" 12 weeks. The doctors confirmed it this morning. They wanted to be sure before telling us. Tears streamed down my face, joy and terror and disbelief all tangled together. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby," he confirmed. "And I'm absolutely terrified." "Me too." "The best kind of terrified?" I laughed through my tears. "The very best kind." He pulled me close, and we stood there in the supply room surrounded by bandages and antiseptic, two people who'd been told they were broken, holding the impossible future we'd built together. Outside, the black wolves that had surrounded my clinic that first morning stood guard. But now they protected not just their king, but their queen, the human veterinarian who'd made a mistake in the darkness and found her destiny in the light.